No more excuses. Have you ever reached a point where you cannot make excuses anymore? Nothing you said makes sense. Nothing you told yourself worked. Nothing could justify you going back to what you were already doing. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew what you needed to change, and you knew that every excuse made you feel empty. That's where I was, right? I was stuck between my pain and my trauma, what I knew I needed to create a better future for myself. And I had to make a choice, right? Do I keep doing what I already been doing, hurting myself, hurting my children, or hurting the people around me? Or do I stop, right? Stop making excuses and actually face myself, actually start the process of healing and actually move forward instead of talking about it. This episode is all about that moment. The moment excuses stop working, the moment we stop staying in the same place in the hurt and start to choose change and walk down a different path. But before we get into that, let me introduce myself. Hi. My name is Rose, and I'm your host here at A Sister Love Podcast, and I'm just one woman with one voice trying to help women heal one story at a time. And if you are a woman who is in the beginning stages of healing and don't know where to start and searching for resources, support, and education, then you are in the right place. I would love for you to become part of our sister. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and never miss another episode of the Sister Love Podcast. And also, don't forget to join our Facebook group, So Let's Heal Together, where we keep the conversations going. We share our stories. We support each other along the way. All right. So I want to start this episode by going back to episode 1. I don't know if you remember, but in episode 1, I talked about relationships that I have with my children. And I talked about one moment that really forced me to stop and look at myself, right? And that moment was when I came across my daughter's journal and I read it. Please do not judge me. I read it because I was an overprotective mom. And in my mind, going through her journal felt like protection. It felt like me overseeing things and making sure nothing was going on with her, making sure that she was okay. That was my mindset back then. So please forgive me. But reading that journal changed everything for me, because inside those pages, I saw how she felt about me. I saw how she was experiencing life. And I had to sit with the reality of that. At that moment, I had to take accountability. I had to take the responsibility for the role that I was playing in her life and how my unhealed trauma was affecting her childhood. That was something I really had to face, because the truth is, as parents, mothers, and fathers, we are our children's first experience of a relationship. If that first relationship isn't healthy, it affects how they move through relationships later in life. Yes, they can unlearn things later. Yes, they can heal, but it becomes harder and unnecessary, and it becomes more pain and more confusion and more struggle for them. And I had to ask myself a question. Why would I knowingly contribute to that if I didn't have to? Because up until then, I really, really, really thought that I was doing the right thing. I thought that I was a great mom. I thought everything I was doing was necessary. I thought that I was protecting my child the way a mother should, right? And I wasn't seeing that my intentions wasn't from love. It's just that they wasn't healthy. This messed me up because hurting my children was never my intentions. Ever. I truly believe that I was parenting from love. But the truth was, I was parenting from fear. I was parenting from my trauma, from a broken version of myself, from a scared version of myself. I wasn't fully present, but I was protective as hell. Full-blown mama bear, right? Ugh. Nothing was getting to my children. Nobody was hurting them. And nothing was getting on by my watch. That's why that version of me existed. I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot. I lived through a lot. Not just in my adulthood, but as a child too. Watching the relationship between my mother and my father, watching my dad abuse my mom was so traumatic for me. So yes, I understand why I did what I did. I understand why we make the excuses that for our behavior. But there comes a point where the excuses cannot be an option anymore. I had to reach a point where I could no longer justify who I was and how I was acting by saying, well, look what I've been through, right? Because if I keep doing that, I would keep hurting my children, even if I didn't mean to, even if I was trying my best. I remember really looking at myself, right? Let's see. And thinking, this is not who I am. This is not who I want my children to become. I didn't want them to marry me. I didn't want them to move through life the way that I've been moving through life. And then I had to admit this because there are good things about me, but I wouldn't allow those things to shine. I've been letting my trauma become my mirror. How I show up as a parent, how I show up as a woman, and how I moved through this world was through my trauma. And the truth is, I didn't really know who Rose was outside of her trauma. I only knew who Rose was through her trauma. I knew who Rose was because of what she survived, right? I knew who Rose was because of what she went through. I knew who Rose was because she made a promise to herself that she was never going back. I knew I was never going back to what I have experienced. I knew I was never going back to that pain. I knew I was never going back to that version of my life, right? And because of that, I made it my job to make sure my children would never experience what I experienced. And that became my full focus. Everything I did came from that place, how I parent, how I reacted, and how I protected, and how I moved. I wasn't moving as Rose. I was moving as someone who survived. And I was making damn sure that was never happening again. And for a long time, I thought that was enough. I thought that was me being a good mom. I thought that was me doing what I was supposed to do. I thought that was me showing up the right way. But at some point, I had to stop and really look at myself and realize this version of me, the version that only knew how to survive and protect, was the only version I have ever lived as. I didn't know who Rose was outside of that. I didn't know who Rose was when she wasn't in protection mode. I didn't know who Rose was when she wasn't reacting. I didn't know who Rose was when she wasn't trying to prevent something from happening. And that's when it hit me like a fork in the road, right? Boom. Because I had to choose. I could keep walking down the same path, doing what I already done, being who I always been, making moves the way I always moved. Or I could stop making excuses. I could make excuses like, well, look at what I've been through. And I could find a way to become the person I keep saying I want to be. The mother I keep saying I want to be. The woman I keep saying I want to be. Even if I didn't fully know what that looked like yet. And that's where I decided a decision had came. That's where the decision came in, right? I had to step into something new, something that I have never lived as before. And it was uncomfortable. And honestly, this whole season was about, being uncomfortable, making a decision, saying willing, and running into things that you never expected, and learning how to keep going anyways. Because once I decided I was done making excuses, things didn't suddenly get easier. They actually got harder for me. And as the season went on, I shared those roadblocks I ran into, because if I went through them, I know you might be going through them too. So I want to take a minute and walk back through the season. Let's go back to the beginning. Episode 1 was about willingness and not being ready, but being willing. So many of us keep waiting to feel calm, stable, confident, like it's finally the right time. And most of the time, that moment never comes. And episode 1 was really about saying, I do not really feel ready, but I'm willing. Willing to stop running for myself, willing to stay, willing to be honest, willing to take steps without knowing where it will lead. Then episode 2 was about what happens after willingness. Because once you're willing and aware, you don't usually feel motivated. You feel stuck, right? You don't know what to do next. You don't know where to start. And because you've never been in that position before, your survival instincts kick in. You freeze, you fight, or you turn and run. So in episode 2 was about the stuckness, why it shows up and why it makes sense and how to navigate it. Then episode 3, that's where we hit the first roadblock, protection. You want to heal so you don't let your guard down. But this is one was strong for me because I'm a protector. I'm a mama bear, right? We talked about why that protection exists, why it keeps you safe, and why letting your guard down can feel dangerous, even when nothing bad is actually happening. Even when life looks okay on the outside, your body still doesn't relax. Instead of trying to get rid of the protection, we talked about how to move forward with it and how to understand it instead of fighting it. Then in episode 4, that one was about guilt, how guilt makes you question whether your pain even matters. Guilt towards yourself, guilt towards others, guilt towards time, and how guilt keeps you minimizing what happens and doubting yourself and stopping you from progressing in your healing in a healthy way. Then in episode 5, this one was about your fear of healing. A lot of us are scared of healing because we do not know who we will be without the pain. We lived with it so long and it became familiar. It became part of who we are. And we use a quote from Maya Angelou that helped us identify why this is scary, because it's really not about the pain that it is. It's our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, right? What it means if we're moved through life, what does that power looks like? What does that mean for us? And that's scary for us, a lot of us. Then we moved into the actual work. Episode 6 was about creating safety, identifying the areas in your life that feel safe and the ones that don't. Because even if trauma happened in one area, it usually affects everything. And episode 6 helped you to see where safety was missing. Then episode 7, that's where we created a stabilization. We looked at the areas that felt unsafe and then broke them down, and we identified what it felt safe inside those areas and what didn't. We looked at what's actually worked in your safety areas and start to apply those things to the unsafe areas. We created a short-term tools for when we're triggered in the moment and long-term practices for day-to-day regulation that changed your life over time. Episode 8, who has the pain made you into? This is where identity comes in. This is where we start separating what we've been through from who we are. And once the separation starts happening, the question shows up, who am I outside of this? That's unfamiliar territory, and the unfamiliar territory triggers survival. So we talked about grief, letting go of the version of yourself, grieving who you had to be to survive, and learning how to adapt yourself into this new area, learning self-compassion, giving yourself grace. Then in episode 9 and 10, we listen to other women's stories, their perspective, their process, how they went through this healing process and the things they did. I don't want to just give you my perspective and have you sitting there like, oh my God, this does not work for me. My process is my process. Your process is your process. I'm just trying to help this process go as smoothly as it can for you. So I want to give you what I have and give you other people's viewpoints in this process also. That's when my expert comes in and she talks about emotional regulation, which was another roadblock, because we talk a little bit about the emotions in the episode 8, about emotions and the thoughts. In that process, we talked about emotions and the thoughts and their perspectives and the assumptions. Just because they're not always factual does not mean that they don't affect us. I'm going to be honest. I can navigate that for myself, but it's hard for me to explain it for other people. I didn't want to go too deep into that part myself because that part is a little sticky for me because I don't have a lot of knowledge around it. So I brought in someone who can help you and knows more than I did, who can explain it better, who can help you navigate that in a way that is actual useful for you. So we did that. And I really, really, really hope that was helpful for you. And now we're here in episode 11. This is where everything comes together. This is where we get to pause for a second and really look at everything we talked about this season. How far you came since episode 1. The things that you understand now that you didn't understand before. These things you're doing now that you weren't doing before. They might feel small because I just want to let you know that they're not. We don't always notice growth while it's happening. Most of the time, we're only seeing it when we stop long enough to look back. And I just want to take a moment here and celebrate you, right? Like really celebrate you. Come on. Because I see you, right? And I want to give you the love and virtual hugs as possible through this mic because you deserve it. You deserve to be acknowledged. You deserve to be recognized for everything that you've been doing here. This process isn't easy. This shit is hard. And I need you to know, even though it seemed like I'm a little further than you, right? This path is still hard for me too. I'm still fighting for my life every day. I am still choosing myself every day. So for you to be here, for you to listen to this season, and for you to stay even when it gets uncomfortable, even if you didn't do everything, even if you didn't finish every worksheet, even if you still feel stuck in some places, this journey is just beginning. It's the fact that you're giving it time, right? That means something, right? I say this every episode because it's true. Time is valuable. We do not get it back. So the fact that you spend your time here listening, reflecting, and really trying to understand yourself, I honor you. I really do. And before we close this season, I want to leave you with something, right? A lot of women has been DMing me, messaging me, and said, bro, this season helped me so much. It made a lot of things clear. But now that the season is ended, I really, really need something more than just the podcast. They told me, I appreciate the worksheet. I appreciate the conversations, but I still feel like I need a little extra support outside of this. And if you were one of those women, or if you didn't message me, but you're sitting here feeling like the same exact way, and you need something to help you keep going after the season end, I have something for you. I have a collection called Healing the Survivor. It's a set of workbooks and tools that's aligned with the season. Some of the topics are things that we already talked about, just broke down deeper, and some of them are things that we didn't get into fully covered this season. Inside the collection, there are workbooks that can help you. Trauma Imprint on My Emotion, which it helps you understand how trauma shows up in your emotions and why you react the way you do. Wounded, Healing from Trauma, which helps you identify the wound trauma leaves behind where they show up in your life. Escaping Survival Mode, which helps you understand survival mode and how to begin stepping out of it. Mourning the Loss of Me, which helps you grieve the version of yourself you had to become to survive. The Journey to Self, which helps you recreate who you are underneath everything. There are also 2 sets of flashcards. Trauma Coping Compass, which gives you practical coping tools for which things that when you're feeling overwhelmed. And then we got Emotional Fog, which help you understand, name, and express what you're feeling when everything is feeling confusing and overwhelmed. This collection is a resource. It's not here to replace therapy or anything else that you're doing, right? Something to support you in your healing process. The full value of this collection is about $175, but I'm giving it to you for $44, right? Because you are my sisters, you are my people. And I want to be clear about this part, right? I'm not here to convince you that you need this. I'm just trying to be a resource for you. This podcast might have been enough for you. And if that is okay. But it feels like you want something that can help you go a little deeper, something that can help you in this process feel a little bit easier to navigate, then maybe that is for you, right? I just want to make sure that you have everything that you needed in this process before we leave each other. And I just want to say thank you and thank you again for choosing yourself enough to listen and really explore what healing looks like for you. I love you, and I truly, truly do. And I look forward to being with you again in next season. If you not already in our Facebook group, I encourage you to join us. That's where the conversations continue, where we have more resources and where we support each other and love on each other through this journey. Until next season, signing out, your sister through love, Rose. Bye.